Mzo looked at me for a moment longer than usual. There was something in his eyes that made me wonder whether my words had unsettled him. I had casually told him that I had won 4,000 runs through lucky numbers, expecting perhaps a smile, a joke, or even a word of congratulations. Instead, his face carried another message. He was judging me. "You were supposed to keep quiet," he said. I looked at him. "Keep quiet about what?" "About the money you won." His voice was calm, but there was certainty behind it. "You don't tell people when you win money. Whether it's 4,000 rands or even less than 5,000 rands, you keep it to yourself." He paused, as though he was about to reveal a rule that had governed his own life for years. "Look at me," he continued. "When I win money, I don't tell anyone. Not even my wife. Not even my children. When I win, it is my secret." I listened. For a moment, I felt as though I had been caught doing something wrong. Perhaps I had spoken too much. Perhaps I had trusted people too easily. Perhaps Mzo was right. "I made a very big mistake," I said. He said nothing. "I've learned something from you today. Next time I win money, I'll know what to do." The conversation seemed to end there. I turned away and went back to my work, waiting for me in the yard. But although my hands were busy, my mind was not. As I moved around the yard, picking up one thing and putting down another, Mzo's words followed me. "When I win, it is my secret." The sentence kept returning. It followed me from one corner of the yard to another. I began asking myself a question: was his way of living the only way of living? People were different. Their circumstances were different. Their needs were different. Their experiences were different. So why should one person's rule become another person's law? I stopped what I was doing. I thought about the people I had met over the years, especially those who had received unexpected money. I remembered their reactions, their generosity, their excitement, and even the suspicion that sometimes followed them. Gradually, 3 examples came to my mind. They were enough to challenge Mzo's argument. After several minutes, I returned to him. Something about my mood had changed. I was smiling. Mzo noticed. He looked at me with curiosity. "What made you come back?" he asked. "I've been thinking about what you said." "About the money?" "Yes. About the 4,000 rands." He waited. "You said I should have kept quiet about it," I reminded him. I thought about that very carefully. And I realized that people don't all live according to the same rules. Mzo raised his eyebrows. "What do you mean?" "I have 3 examples." He settled himself and listened. The first one takes me back to the days when I had my shop in Fumulang, Tembisa. The memory was still clear. One day, a man came into my shop carrying a betting slip. He wanted to check the results of the games he had played. He asked to use my data bundles. He checked Liverpool first. The match had ended in a draw. He had predicted Liverpool to win or draw, so he continued checking the other games on his slip. One by one, the results came up. Then suddenly his face changed. I smiled at the memory. He looked at me and said, "I've won. I found money to pay my rent." He was genuinely happy. It wasn't the kind of happiness a person could hide. And then he did something that stayed with me. He took 50 rand and gave it to me. "Buy yourself a cold drink," he said. Mzo remained silent. "That man could have kept the news to himself," I continued. "He could have walked out of my shop with his money and celebrated alone. Instead, he shared his happiness with someone else." I looked at Mzo. That was his lifestyle. I allowed the words to settle. If your lifestyle is that when you win money you keep it secret, that's your choice. I don't have a problem with that. But it doesn't mean everybody must live the same way. Mzo shifted slightly. I continued. Let me give you another example. I took him back to Fumilong again. Some years ago, I was with a group of people when a man started buying beer and drinks for everyone. He wasn't a rich man. Nobody expected him to spend money like that. People began wondering what had happened to him. Then he explained. He had won 10,000 rands. He said he couldn't eat the money alone. He wanted to celebrate with other people. I paused. Think about that. The money had arrived unexpectedly. He hadn't worked for it. He hadn't planned for it. It simply came into his hands. And instead of locking himself away with the money, he turned it into a celebration. Mzo was quiet. His eyes were fixed on me now. I knew he was listening. So, Mzo, when you tell me that winning money must always be a secret, I can't accept that as a universal truth. It may be your truth. But it isn't everyone's truth. He did not interrupt. I had one final example. And this is perhaps the most important one. I lowered my voice. There was a young man in his early 20s. He wasn't working. Suddenly, people began seeing him buying beer. Not one bottle. Not two. He was buying plenty. At first, people were happy to receive the drinks. Then the questions started. I looked at Mzo. Where is this boy getting all this money? Did he rob someone? Did he steal? Did he become involved in something dangerous? I shook my head. People had begun writing their own story because they didn't know the truth. I paused. Imagine if that young man had simply told them, guys, I played lotto and won 2,000 rands. The mystery would have disappeared. The suspicion would have disappeared. The story would have disappeared. The yard seemed quieter now. That's the problem with keeping everything secret, I said. Sometimes silence creates a bigger story than the truth. Mzo looked at me. I could see that the words were reaching him. We live in a jealous world, I continued. Sometimes people don't need a reason to hate you. They see you doing well, and something inside them changes. They begin asking questions. They begin imagining things. So sometimes, telling people where your money came from isn't boasting. Sometimes it is simply explaining yourself. I took a breath before giving him my final argument. Let me put your situation next to mine. Mzo waited. You are working. You receive a salary. Your wife and children know that you work. They expect money from you at the end of the month. If you suddenly win extra money through gambling, you can choose to keep it as your secret. Nobody may question you because your normal life already explains where your money comes from. I pointed towards myself. But what about me? He remained silent. I am not working. If people know I am unemployed and suddenly see me buying a lot of groceries, paying for things or spending money I normally don't have, they may begin asking questions. Where did he get this money? Did he rob someone? Did he steal? Did he do something illegal? I shook my head. But if I tell them, I won 4,000 rands, everything becomes clear. They may still be jealous. They may still gossip. But at least they know the source. I looked at Mzo. That is why I told people. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. The silence between us was no longer uncomfortable. It was the silence that comes when two people have placed their beliefs on the table and are waiting to see which one survives. Finally, I summarized my argument. Your life is your life, Mzo. Your rules belong to you. If you win money and want to keep it secret, that is your decision. But I cannot take your lifestyle and make it my lifestyle. We are not walking the same road. We don't have the same circumstances. We don't have the same responsibilities. And we don't have the same reasons for speaking or remaining silent. Mzo looked away. The confidence with which he had first spoken about keeping Winning's secret had disappeared. He had begun the conversation believing that he knew the rule. Now he had to confront something more complicated. There was no single rule for everyone. The three examples had opened a door he had not expected to walk through. I could see it in his silence. He had been defeated, not by anger, not by shouting, and not by trying to prove him wrong, but by the spoken words themselves. That day, I learned something too. Sometimes a person does not need to raise his voice to challenge another person's thinking. Sometimes all he needs are memories, facts, examples, and the courage to speak. Because words, when spoken at the right moment, can do something more powerful than silence. They can make a person look at an old belief with new eyes,